Wow, everybody just got really quiet all on their own. I didn't even say anything. I will call the meeting of Dublin City Council back to order. Christina, could you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Christine Ardecchia, would you take it away and introduce us to the Camp Project lead?
That's right. Good evening, members of council, and thank you for taking a minute to recognize really what has become a hallmark in Dublin, Ohio, that many municipalities around the country have tried to duplicate. We know of none that have been sustained in other cities, and we have been at this for 20 years. 21 years ago, parents, when our volunteer program started, parents began to call and say, hello, I'd like to sign my 7th grader up for volunteer service Monday through Friday from 8 to 5, all summer long they can help. At the same time, Recreation Services was recognizing the need for middle school programming. So using City Year as a model, Camp Project Lead combines traditional recreation services for 7th, 8th, and 9th graders, but at least 50% of his time is spent volunteering. It's volunteering as individuals and as groups, both within Dublin and in the inner city of Columbus and our surrounding communities. We certainly emphasize need, and we emphasize reaching outside of oneself. I confess the name LEAD was born on a beverage napkin at the former Mary Kelly's, as many great ideas are. And while we anticipated some serious innovation and duplication, what we didn't estimate was the amount of impact this would have on future young adults who still choose to call Dublin home. Tonight, we have with us several people who are very proud of having been a part of this program. Recreation Supervisor Scott Hanks, who is our partner in crime producing this. Who is back there, Scott? Wave. There you are. Our department's administrative support, Samantha Haberkamp, who grew up through LEAD and was also an intern. And then a LEAD alumnus who is also my current intern and MPA candidate, Emily Gulliver. Numerous employees at the rec center as well have come through this program. But tonight we want to hear from 2 alumni and a current LEAD member. I'd like to introduce Dr. Kathy Granite, Mr. Robert Berta, and current LEADster, Olivia Worth. So I turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kathy Granite, and I was in the LEAD program for 3 consecutive summers, from 2004 to 2006. Currently, I'm a pediatric developmental occupational therapist working at Nationwide Children's outpatient clinics here in town. While reflecting on my experiences participating in the LEAD summer camp program, I realized just how influential LEAD was in shaping the woman I am today. Having the opportunities to volunteer across the city, specifically at the elementary Wyandotte camps, helped me to find my passion to help others and my love for working with children. Not only did it help shape my future, but has allowed me the opportunity to develop close friendships in my middle school years, which have lasted to this day. LEAD stands for Leadership, Ethics, Esteem, and Duty, values which I still carry with me to this day. LEAD assisted in laying the foundation for those skills to develop and to carry on into my other Dublin City experiences, such as the former high school program Dublin Teen Corps, and becoming a camp counselor myself for a Wyandotte summer camp program. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the Dublin City Council and staff leadership for your continued support of the program, as it has played such a profound role in shaping the young generations of Dublin and for those to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, members of council. My name is Roberta, and I was also a LEAD graduate for 3 years. That time I spent working with the city's youth has led me to also be a referee for 13 years at Avery and Dari a lot of the times. Probably yelled at me once or twice. And it's I've also done 3 years of coaching local Dublin United Club. And then now I'm about to start my journey into law school. I'm still a Dublin resident, and the great thing about this camp is it not only did it provide us something to do when we were younger during the summer months, but working close with the children, it really developed how we, developed as human beings ourselves. So by allowing LEAD to grow, you will be enabling the future youth of Dublin to get excited about where they call home. And thank you, Dublin City Council, and thank you, Christine.
Thank you very much. And Olivia.
Good evening, council members. I'm Olivia. I've been a part of LEAD for 3 years, and being a part of it has really opened up my eyes because we live in a Dublin bubble, and we don't experience a lot of things that most people are going through around us, and it's been really eye-opening, and it gives us a lot of experiences and prepares us for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. You got a doctor and a lawyer, so I don't know what's going to happen to you, young lady, but your odds are pretty good at this point, I think. I do have a proclamation, Christine. Whereas the City of Dublin encourages, supports, cultivates innovative volunteer engagement among residents of all ages, and whereas the City of Dublin places great value on meaningful community volunteerism to enhance city services, promote citizen learning, and enriching lives, and whereas in June of 1999, the City of Dublin created and launched Camp Project LEAD, a learn and serve teen summer volunteer camp focusing on the 4 pillars of leadership, ethics, esteem, and duty. And whereas this innovative program, a partnership between the Dublin Recreational Services and Dublin Outreach and Engagement, has been recognized at local, state, and national levels and continues to be a model for municipalities and organizations nationwide. And whereas during its 20-year history, more than 750 youth volunteers have donated 55,000 volunteer service hours to the City of Dublin and 60 Central Ohio nonprofit agencies. And whereas their service hours have had an impact, and cause to individuals to outreach to children, older adults, environment, the arts, animal welfare, multicultural understanding, people with disabilities, food insecurity, and hunger. And whereas alumni from Camp Project LEAD consistently continue to focus on services and volunteerism into their teen and adult years. And whereas alumni of Camp Project LEAD have an enhanced sense of home, community pride, of local government understanding because of their experience in this program. And whereas Camp Project LEAD has truly reflected the power of volunteerism and the positive impact it has on all individual lives and community welfare. Now, therefore, I, Gregory S. Peterson, Mayor of Dublin, Ohio, on behalf of Dublin City Council, do hereby proclaim Monday, June 10th, 2019, as Camp Project LEAD Day in the city of Dublin, Ohio, and encourage all citizens to acknowledge the contributions made to the quality of life in our city and the Central Ohio community through the spirit of engaging our residents through volunteerism. So I'm going to give it to one of you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank
It's a
you.
pleasure to meet you. Thanks, Olivia, for coming in. Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to get a
Whoop, picture. I think it never ceases to amaze all of us, Christine, all the volunteer hours that you get out of our community from every age group that we have, and it gets reinforced year in and year out about how much giving this community really does. So thank you very much for your efforts to. A 20-year-old project. That was occurring to me, too. I thought, oh, my God, it's 20 years old. Thank you very much, Christine. Now, recognition of outgoing city boards and commission members. We have 3 of them. David, come on up here. Is Steve? There he is. Steve and Phil Smith. Come on up. You know, a lot of focus is paid on city council meetings every other Monday night, but in between, just about every week, we have multiple commissions and boards that meet in this chamber that are all volunteers from our community that come in and put in tons of hours on really, really important subjects and do a lot of work for city council so that we can get recommendations and get their opinion, provide our community with more due process and input and the ability to have a hearing and get informed. And all 3 of these gentlemen have volunteered many, many hours for us on various boards and commissions. We do have 4 other outgoing members that I would like to recognize, although they were unable to be with us this evening. Robert Miller served on the Planning and Zoning Commission. Jeff Lonhard served on the Architectural Review Board. Ryan Myers through the Board of Zoning Appeals, and Christine Gorowski was on the Community Services Advisory Committee. We also have these three gentlemen in front of us here, and Steve, Kathy, you're going to handle this one.
Thank you very much. I get the privilege to say a few words about Steve. Steve and I we were newbies together on planning and zoning, and so he taught me a lot, so I appreciate that. Steve's term on planning and zoning began in April 2015 and ended in March 2019. He served as vice chair from September 2017 through 2018. And I can tell you, having served with him, Steve was always about not only today but the future and sustainability particularly. Solar everything, according to Steve, and he has a real passion for that, and it was clear. He works in Dublin in his background as in information technology, and he's part of the Cardinal Health Fuse business. Some of the notable projects that were approved while Steve was on the commission include the Riviera Network, a majority of the Bridge Park development on the east side of the Scioto, the Home 2 Hotel, the AC Marriott Hotel, the Bridge Street District Sign Design Guidelines, the Charles Penzone Grand Salon, and many zoning code amendments. Actually, I think the list of what you didn't work on would be shorter. His service also included a review of improvements in the area plans for the West Innovation District, the Ohio University Framework Plan, and the Dublin Legacy Office Plan as part of the ongoing long-range planning effort. Steve departed from the commission duties so that he could do more work, and he currently serves on the Technology Advisory Committee. And I had the privilege of attending one of the meetings that he hosted at Fuse, and they're doing terrific work. So thank you very much, Steve, for what you did and what you continue to do.
Thank you. You want to give him his thing? There you go. David Rinaldi served on the Architectural Review Board from April 2013, that probably seems like yesterday, right, Dave? Through March of 2019. As an architect, he was very cognizant of the unique needs of the historic businesses and the residential community as well. David's keenness and motivation served him well as the chair of the board for 3 years, as he sought to ensure that the decisions of the board were based on thorough discussion and examination of the facts relevant to each case. His energy was put forth towards preservation as well as upholding the high-quality development standards that make the historic district distinctive by considering sustainability through the uses of alternative materials. During David's tenure, the Commission reviewed and approved several zoning code amendments, demolition requests, and district rezoning requests through the development of the Bridge Street District on the west side of the Scioto River. He participated in the review of the historic and cultural assessment and was part of a stakeholder committee for both the creation of the Historic Dublin Design Guidelines and Code, as well as the signature and transition element for the new library, which is really fantastic. A short list of the many notable projects David reviewed included the 5051 Brand Road property, Beholder Wright Earthworks, which is now our newest city park to come online, Ferris Wright Park, buildings Z1 and Z2 on the Bridge Park West, the new Columbus Metropolitan Library, the Dublin branch, and historic Dublin parking garage, the Riverside Crossing Park West, and numerous alterations, additions, and site modifications to many existing residences and commercial properties within the historic district. Thank you, David, for your many years of dedicated and professional service to not only board but to this community. And whenever you talk about historic topics, as Jane well knows, emotion goes to the top of the list, that people, they care very much about it. And it is a very challenging thing to preserve what needs preserved and accept the fact some things don't need preserved and time needs to march on, and to balance those two things at the same time. And for those that people that don't know, the Architectural Review Board is basically the planning and zoning for all historical things around our community. And so it is an extremely difficult job, and David, you have performed it expertly and with great precision and professionalism, and especially the last 3 years as the chairman of that organization. So we're going to send you back home to Julie. She's probably going to make you volunteer for some other board when you start hanging around the house more often. But thank you very much for your service to this community. Appreciate it.
Right, and David, I'd just like to say, because I served with you, and it was during a period of time when it was really, really controversial, and there was a lot of serious thought that needed to go into it. And as a chairman, you always kept the conversation well-versed. You engaged all of us. I think you listened so closely to the community, and I just want to say that I was really privileged to serve on that board with you, and happy that you were there for that.
Thanks again, David. And Chris?
Finally, we have Phil Smith, and I would like to start by thanking you for your service on the Dublin Convention and Visitors Bureau, but that would be premature because your service is continuing, as I understand it. So anyhow, he served as president for 2 years. That's quite an honor for our appointee to be the president of the board, and the executive committee for 4 years. And the board recently voted him to remain on their board as an ex officio member. So you were such a valued entity to them. They didn't want to let you go. So a couple of projects that you helped spearhead was the strategic plan for the Bureau, which is leading to the vision for the 2019 to 2022 strategic plan. So you know you've been there a while when you have to work on 2 different strategic plans. So, but during your tenure as board president, the organization reached record levels of new business leads and hotel room nights secured, social media impressions, and numerous other records. So, and in that time also, you won 34 statewide awards for marketing excellence with the Bureau. So thank you for your service that you have given, and thank you ahead of time for the service that you will continue to give.
Do any of you want to comment, say a few words? David, anything?
Just want to say it was a privilege to serve on the board, and it's a fantastic staff the city has. They make our job pretty easy. And but you're right, it is a challenging and emotional place to be on many of those board evenings. So, but again, thank you. It was a great experience.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Steve, anything?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, planning and zoning is an amazing experience. I really encourage residents, if they have the opportunity to be involved, to take it, because you learn so much about the city, about how things go and how they run. I learned so much. It's really invaluable. And I'm saying, I'm going to accept this mug, right? But I'm not saying it's my last time on planning and zoning, because I'll probably be back. But it was a great experience, so thank you.
Good to hear. Phil?
Yeah, just, well, 2 things. One, thanks for mentioning the awards. I had nothing to do with the awards. As you know, Scott and his team are terrific. I mean, it's amazing the work they do. And I'll just say, coming on that board as a resident, knowing nothing about what they did, how impressed I am with them. They are an incredible team, small, energetic leprechauns. So they deserve a lot. They're incredible.
Thank you very much. I should point out that we have term limits on our boards and commissions. That's why everybody turns over, and we have new faces every once in a while. And it is, we interview everyone for these positions, and it's always a very, very challenging, difficult thing to do because we have so many qualified candidates that volunteer. And I would encourage everybody else, people probably look at those, the applications and think, well, how could that possibly be me? How could I do that job? Well, it is exactly that person who's just a member of our community. That's the perspective we need. And guys like you that have come in and helped the city march forward over the past few years. So thank you very much for everything that you did for us. Thank you. Now you can go set your clocks, and now you'll never be late again. Citizen comments portion of the agenda. I don't have anybody signing up that has come up from the sign-up sheets out in the lobby. If anybody would like, does anybody just raise your hand and we'll listen to you for 5 minutes about whatever you want to talk about. Seeing no hands, we will move along to the consent agenda. Does any council member wish to remove either of the 2 minutes that are on the consent agenda? Hearing no such request, I will make a motion we approve those 2 items. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Jane? Or Jane?
Ms. Fox?
Ann?
Ms.
Yes.
Fox? Ms. Saludo?
Yes.
Mr. Rosa?
Yes.
Mayor Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Second reading, public hearing on ordinances, ordinance 26-19.
Ordinance supplementing Ordinance 5215 to establish an urban redevelopment tax increment equivalent fund for Ridge Park Z Block.
Matt?
This ordinance remains unchanged from its first hearing. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions from council? Hearing none. Ann?
Ms. Saludo?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Mayor Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Rosa?
Yes.
Ordinance 27-19, Ann?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a real estate purchase agreement to convey the property located at 5800 Shire Rings Road to Air Force One, Inc., and authorizing execution of various related documents.
Donna?
Good evening, members of council. Before you this evening is a real estate purchase agreement for the proposed disposition of property at 5800 Shire Rings Road to Air Force One Incorporated. There have been no changes made to the document since the first reading, and you'll recall that the purchase price of $2.7 million is consistent with the appraised value of the two-story building and the 6.25 acre site. With us tonight are Bill Guy and Greg Guy to give a brief overview of Air Force One and answer any questions you may have about the business.
Mr. Guy, do you want to come on up?
This is truly age before beauty. We are very appreciative of the opportunity to continue our business in Dublin, Ohio. I came to Dublin, Ohio when I was 4 years old. That's when my parents obviously moved here. That now is 70 years ago. So that speaks to how old I am, I guess. Back then, my father moved his business. He formed a business in Columbus in '53, and he moved it to Dublin in 1955. He continued actively in that business. I worked for him for 17 years at J.A. Guy Incorporated, and then I formed Air Force One as a wholly owned subsidiary. I was president of both, and then I sailed off on my own little ship now, soon to be 35 years ago, and that little ship continues to grow. We are very, very proud of what we do, who we are, and what we contribute. At the same time, let me back up for just a second, and I'm looking at Donna, and she's reminding me with her eyes that telling you back when my family first came here, we lived at 8015 Riverside Drive, right next door would have been where my grandparents lived, moved there right after we did, and that would be the old log cabin that Dublin just recently reclaimed on Riverside Drive. So, yeah, there's a little bit of family history there. We've always lived in Dublin. Shoot, I don't know that I've really, other than going to college, have ever lived anywhere but Dublin. So it's been a privilege to be here, and it's a privilege to continue it here. And with all of that, let me introduce you to the future of Air Force One, which isn't, you're all good, be glad to hear, it's not me. It is really Greg Guy. I'll share. He owns controlling interest of the corporation. I work for him. I probably don't work as much as he'd like, but I do work for him.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks. Nice to see all of you. Thank you for having us this evening, and we're excited to take this opportunity forward. So we've got about 65 folks that come that are office-based that work here in Dublin every day, and about another 70 or so that are field-based that are in and around Dublin every day. And so it's been a great privilege for me to grow our business here, and we have 5 other offices throughout Ohio, and a total staff of about just under 300. So workforce development and training our folks is a big part of what we do, and it's a big part of what this property will allow us to do. We are flat out of space where we are today, and this will enable us to take another step forward and grow our business and keep it here. So we appreciate that. Yeah.
Fantastic. In the staff memo, that was kind of a history of your business, and your family-owned business is exactly the kind of company that Dublin needs and wants and is the future. And as you think about it, it's actually the backbone of this country. Small businesses that are started by families, and they succeed through high-quality work and being attentive to the future. So thank you very much for what you do for us. We're really glad to have you here. Very, very much appreciate your presence here in Dublin. Jane?
I'd like to ask a quick question, and your workforce development, I find that fascinating. I have a nephew who started in the heating and cooling through the apprenticeship program of the union.
Oh, yeah.
And it was very, very difficult for him to get into. So can you just tell us just quickly about your workforce development and how people can get into it? Because I think it's fascinating that the service industry is, and you're offering that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we are, union-free, so we're a non-union provider, which is an alternative, of course, to the union track. So unlike the union, we have to train our own folks, and we do that through a series, initially through kind of a pre-apprenticeship program when people are still in high school, through an apprenticeship program that ultimately ends up in a journeyman classification through the state of Ohio. And that's a several-year process. Some of it is in classroom and in lab. So in the 5800 building right now, in the part that we're leasing, we actually have our training, our local lab training area set up. So if you would care to have a look at it, I'd be happy to show it to you. So we're training technicians there, and then we're also doing a lot in the field. And it's really a wonderful representation of the way that training has been done for centuries. It's you know, apprentice and journeyman working side by side, learning the trade, hands-on. I'm a big, while I have a college degree, I'm a big advocate that not everybody needs a college degree, and I'm a big advocate for the apprenticeship program and the opportunity that exists in our trade and other vocational trades. And we just frankly don't have enough young people that are coming into the trade. So once you do get into our trade, it's guaranteed employment. I mean, the work is there, and it's essentially recession-proof because we work almost exclusively in the existing building market versus new construction. And in the existing building market, you know, there's always service, there's always maintenance. None of our jobs are going to be outsourced to another country. Robots can't do what we do, and so it's a great vocation and a great trade for young people to come into.
I really appreciate that, because I think so often we don't show the opportunities that are available. So if young people wanted to hook up with your company,
Yeah.
to do that, would they just contact you, or would they go through the schools, or
Yeah,
what
so-
if those that have already graduated and are looking for a good opportunity for training, they could just contact you?
Absolutely. We actually just took 7 people into our pre-apprenticeship program this summer, one from Fort Hayes in Columbus, one from Eastland Fairfield. Unfortunately, Tolles doesn't have an HVAC program, you know, that we align with here. So in the Dublin City Schools, I went to high school with Chris, and and so I worked for my father through high school and in the trade, and went to school and all of that, and kind of bolted together an apprenticeship program. So we're hiring through the tech schools throughout the state and all of the different markets that we're in. And so, yeah, absolutely, reaching out to us. We have it on our website. Our internship program, or pre-apprenticeship program, is closed for this summer, but we start recruiting and opening that program up around April or May.
That's great to know.
Next year. Yeah.
That's really great to know.
Yeah.
That's
thanks.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd like to tag on one last thing that Greg was talking about, you being the kind of businesses that makes Dublin such a wonderful community. But Greg won't tell you, but they give back a ton too. Mr. Guy and his wife always were supportive of all things Dublin. And, you know, Greg, through his corporate contributions, recently did the flags at Scioto High School.
All 3 high schools, actually.
And, you know, it's not just, they're just not residents, they're participants in our community, and we really appreciate you.
Yeah, those flags are really cool. So they actually, you know, motorize out of the ceiling. So next time you're at one of the high schools, you'll see them.
Very cool.
So,
Great.
all right.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
guys.
much. We
Yeah.
appreciate it. Ann?
Vice Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Bosa?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Mayor Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Ordinance first readings, ordinance 28-19.
Accepting the annexation of 4.816 plus or minus acres from Washington Township to the city of Dublin.
Vad, are you dealing with this?
Yes, Mayor Peterson, members of council. This ordinance would approve the annexation of property that is owned by Washington Township, but currently within Concord Township. Because this is a regular annexation, it provides the opportunity for the city to adjust the boundaries, to remove that property from its existing township and place it within Washington Township. So there will be continued uniformity of fire service for that parcel, and that is something that the commissioners, it's submitted to the county commissioners, but that they are required to approve. I see that the Washington Township Fire Chief and Administrator are in the room tonight, so if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions from council? Hearing none, we'll see you back on June 24th. Thanks, Dan. Ordinance 29-19, Ann?
Amending the annual appropriations for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2019.
Matt?
Ordinance 29-19 is our second quarter supplemental for the 2019 appropriations. Details on the requested amounts and their purpose are outlined in the accompanying memo, and I'm available to provide any additional information that is requested.
Any questions from council? Chris?
I had one question regarding the salaries and wages in engineering. Is that an additional help that will be working in that department?
No, that additional amount is for changes that were made to the employee salary and benefit structure as a result of joining the union.
Okay. So we won't have any revenue that would offset that? There wouldn't be any additional? Okay.
No.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Any other questions? Jane?
Just one. Because there's increasing in the revenue that's coming through the TIFs, get back to that page, so that there's, how do we budget for the increases? Well, we have a 13% increase, which is like $115,000 obligation halfway through the year. So obviously, it's nice to have increases of revenue, but is that a difficult thing to try to budget for as you go forward?
It's extremely difficult, and I wish that we could eliminate that entirely, but it's really not realistic. There's two components to those deductions: the auditor fees, which are fairly somewhat easier to predict, but there's also the treasury fees for delinquent properties, and we don't know when you're going to pay late versus delinquent. Like, we will find out eventually, but if you're just late, you'll pay a fee, and the treasurer will collect part of that fee. We will receive the increased revenue as part of the delinquency, but then the treasurer will take part of that as part of a fee. You don't mind that we book the extra revenue, but I have to report to you that we have the extra fee.
Right.
So it would be extremely difficult to budget that much more accurately than we're able to do so now.
Right. It just seemed that way, so I just wondered how big of a dilemma it was.
The other issue is with these service payments. I mean, it would be nice if you paid every quarter and we received the revenue every quarter, but they tend to come in batches, especially early. Like the Bridge Street, we had a pretty large batch come in 2019, and it'll get smaller. If you pay late, the county auditor may hold that until the next payment, because they're only going to pay us twice a year. So if you pay them late, they may remit to us essentially 6 months behind. And if that crosses a calendar year, then it crosses a calendar year. So we'll show low in the prior year and then higher in the subsequent year. And that's why just doubling it doesn't work, because you don't know if you were low or high. And with the number of TIF funds, investigating all of those details would really take a substantial amount of time. We do the best we can, but this is really quite good if I look at it overall.
Any other questions from council? All right, we'll see you back on June 24th. Thanks, man. Ordinance 30-19, Ann?
Authorizing provision of certain incentives to Univar USA, Inc. to induce it to lease a facility to retain and expand an office and its associated operations and workforce all within the city. Authorizing execution of an economic development agreement.
Rachel, you're going to be up here for a little while, huh?
That's right.
Introduction.
Go.
Well, good evening, members of City Council. Economic Development staff has been in discussions with Univar Solutions, which is a global chemical and ingredient distributor and provider of value-added services, about its interest in relocating and expanding its sales and customer service facility here in Dublin. This project results in the retention of 313 jobs and the addition of 200 new jobs by 2022. So Univar isn't entirely new to Dublin. They actually, Univar Inc. completed the acquisition of Nexeo Solutions, which is a global chemicals and plastics distributor, earlier this year, back in March. And at that point, the company was located at 5200 Blazer Parkway on the Ashland campus. Also earlier this year, Nexeo relocated to 6000 Parkwood Place as part of a short-term 3-year lease in which no city incentives were involved with that project. So since that time, Univar acquired Nexeo and rebranded to Univar Solutions. So that is the new entity involved with this project. So the economic development agreement proposed to Univar Solutions includes a 7-year, 15% performance incentive on withholdings, capped at $755,000 for the term of the agreement. And the city is also proposing a $75,000 relocation grant to offset fit-up costs associated with the expanded headcount. And in consideration, Univar Solutions agrees to add those 200 new jobs to Dublin by the end of 2021 and execute a minimum 10-year lease on that location within Dublin Corporation limits. And the company must reach predetermined annual withholdings targets to qualify for the performance incentives. And based on the company's payroll projections, it is estimated that the city will net approximately $5,558,000 in income tax withholdings revenue over the company's 10-year lease term. And one more note, as this project is in competition with locations in Phoenix and Dallas, Texas area, the state of Ohio is also proposing economic development incentives, which will be under consideration later this month. If council has any questions, I'd be happy to address those.
Any questions from council?
Rachel, I have one. In the memo, it outlines on the third line, it says the project results in the retention of 313 jobs and the addition of 200 new jobs by 2022. In the actual agreement itself, in the recitals portion under Section 1A, it says the company expects to retain 363 existing employee positions within the city. The company also expects to create 150 new employee positions. So the numbers aren't the same in the memo as in the agreement.
Yeah, that's a good question. We'll double check those numbers to make sure.
The net is the same.
The net is the same, correct.
It's either 313 and 200 or 363 and 150.
We'll double check that. I know the numbers that we've been working off of are the 313 existing jobs here associated with Nexio, and then the 200 new. But we'll take a look at that for the second reading. So apologies for any miscommunication.
Thank you.
Hearing no other questions, we'll see you back on June 24th.
Okay.
Ordinance 31-19.
Authorizing provision of certain incentives to Quantum Health, Inc. to induce it to lease a facility to relocate and expand an office in its associated operations and workforce all within the city. Authorizing execution of an economic development agreement. Need an introduction.
I will introduce it. I'll introduce the last one, too. Go ahead, Rachel.
Good evening once again. Economic Development staff has been in discussions with Quantum Health, which is a leading healthcare and benefits consumer navigation and care coordination company, about the expansion of their corporate headquarters to Dublin. Quantum Health is growing very quickly and has also consistently been recognized as a best place to work in central Ohio. So in fact, the company has been growing so quickly, they've outgrown their current headquarters facility in Columbus, and with limited ability to expand their existing facility, thus their interest in Dublin. And over time, the company plans to transition their 800 existing Quantum Health jobs to Dublin, with the addition of 350 new jobs by 2025, for an overall total of 1,150 new jobs in Dublin. So the economic development agreement proposed to Quantum Health is a 7-year, 17% performance incentive on withholdings, capped at $1,665,000 over the term of the agreement. And the city is also proposing a $150,000 relocation grant to offset moving and fit-up costs. In consideration, Quantum Health agrees to add 1,150 jobs to the Dublin community by the end of 2025. And as before, the company must execute a minimum 10-year lease and reach their predetermined annual withholdings targets to qualify for the performance incentives. And based on the company's payroll projections, it is estimated that the city will net approximately $11,249,000 in income tax withholdings over that 10-year lease term. And once again, this project is also in competition with locations in Fort Worth as well as Nashville. And so the state of Ohio has also proposed incentives to keep the company growing in the Columbus region. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from council?
So Rachel, where are they located now in Columbus?
They are located, off of, in the Crosswoods area in the city of Columbus.
I'm just curious, the state of Ohio, what kind of incentives, what kind of things would they offer the company like this?
Yes, I can double check the specifics for this particular project. There's something called a job creation tax credit, which is applied to the company's, their CAT tax, their commercial activities tax, I believe, is what it stands for. And there's also training grants for workforce development initiatives. But for the purposes of the second reading, we can be sure to clarify what some of those specifics are.
It's mainly for an FYI to
Yeah.
see how the state helps out,
Sure.
local businesses.
Those are
like-
some of the typical offerings they make.
Thank you, Rachel.
Okay, we'll see you back on June 24th. Moving on to 32-19.
Authorizing provision of certain incentives to Dave Thomas Foundation for adoption to induce it to lease or purchase a facility to relocate and expand its office and its associated operations and workforce, all within the city, and authorizing execution of an economic development agreement.
I will introduce it. Rachel.
Okay. Economic Development staff has also been in discussions with the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption about the relocation and expansion of their corporate headquarters back home to Dublin. Established in 1992 by Wendy's founder Dave Thomas, the Foundation for Adoption is the only national nonprofit charity dedicated to dramatically increasing adoptions from North America's foster care system. The company is seeking a new location to serve as their national headquarters in which to operate. The economic development agreement proposed to the company is a 7-year, 15% performance incentive on net new payroll withholdings, capped at $75,000 for the term of the agreement. So the payroll associated with the existing 36 jobs that are relocating from the City of Columbus will not count towards the incentive for this project. And the city also proposes a $25,000 relocation grant to offset moving and fit-up costs. And in consideration, the company agrees to add 46 jobs to the Dublin community by the end of 2025, on top of those 36 existing jobs, for a total of 82 jobs that will be new to the Dublin community. And the company must purchase a property or execute a minimum 10-year lease and reach predetermined annual withholdings targets to qualify for the performance incentives. And based on the company's payroll projections, it is estimated that the city will net approximately $750,000 in income tax withholdings revenues over the 7-year project term. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer those.
Questions from council?
I do. The withholdings in the contract, they're not 750,000, so are they just incorrect?
Thank you for pointing that out. There was an error in the EDA. So the annual cap, that column, the final column on the right, that one is correct. There was just a snafu on the base withholdings, the target withholdings. So we'll make sure that's corrected for the second reading as well. Thank you.
Thank you. That's fine.
Anything else from council? Okay, we'll see you back on June 24th on that one as well. And ordinance 33-19.
Authorizing provision of certain incentives to City Barbecue, LLC, to induce it to lease a facility to relocate and expand an office and its associated operations and workforce, all within the city, authorizing execution of an economic development agreement.
I will introduce it. Rachel.
Okay. And finally, Economic Development staff has been in discussions with City Barbecue about the relocation and expansion of their corporate headquarters here in Dublin as well. This project results in the retention of 68 jobs and the addition of 39 new jobs by 2023. As council is aware, City Barbecue opened its first restaurant in 1999 by company founder Rick Mailer. The organization has grown quickly over the past 20 years and now boasts nearly 50 restaurant locations in 7 states, with plans to grow further and faster in the coming years. The company currently owns its 5,000 square foot corporate headquarters at 6175 Emerald Parkway and leases an adjacent 4,000 square foot training and call center facility. But the company has completely outgrown their 9,000 square feet. And they eventually plan to relocate all business units under one roof with the addition of a test kitchen and expanded training facility once the existing locations can be sold and subleased. So as part of this project, the Economic Development Agreement proposed to the company is a 7-year, 15% performance incentive on withholdings, capped at $165,000 for the term of the agreement. And the city also proposes 2 lump sum relocation grants totaling $60,000 to, again, offset fit-up costs. The first $30,000 grant would be payable once the company occupies the new or renovated facility, and the second $30,000 grant is payable if and when the company relocates all of the existing jobs to the new facility under the same roof. And in consideration, the company agrees to add 39 new jobs to Dublin by 2023 for a total of 107 jobs. And the company must execute a minimum 10-year lease and reach predetermined annual withholdings targets to qualify for the performance incentives. And based on the company's payroll projections, it is estimated that the city will net approximately $1,407,000 in income tax withholdings revenues over the company's 10-year lease term. And once again, the state of Ohio is also proposing economic development incentives for this project, and that will also be reviewed later this month, actually on June 24th, which will coincide with the second reading for this project. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from council?
Rachel, I've got a question again. In the background here, the second line says the project results in a retention of 68 jobs and the addition of 39 new jobs by 2023 in the memo. And when we get down to the economic development agreement, under the recitals, section 1A, it speaks to the company expects to retain 79 existing employee positions with the city, and the company also expects to create 28 new employee positions within the city. So we have the same 107 number, but they are inconsistent. So we just need to verify.
We sure will. Thank you very much for mentioning that.
Anything else from council? Was that it, Chris?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Just one question. I'm just curious, how large of a facility do you think they'll be moving to?
They're estimating about 20,000 square feet, if I recall correctly.
So more than doubling?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you back on June 24th on that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Ordinance 34-19.
Before we get into that, I would, I have a family member that's employed at this, at the organization that this ordinance addresses, so I will recuse myself from this, and we'll be back as soon as it's over.
Okay.
Authorizing the city manager to execute a lease agreement for a term of 5 years with the Dublin Chamber of Commerce, Inc. for the property located at 129 South High Street.
I will introduce it. Angel.
Good evening, members of council. Ordinance number 3419 authorizes the city manager to execute a 5-year lease agreement with the Dublin Chamber of Commerce for the city-owned property located at 129 South High Street. As council is aware, the chamber has been leasing that building from us for some time. The current lease expired in October of 2018, and based on the chamber's desire to continue leasing the property from the city for their operations, staff from the city and the chamber have been working to renegotiate a new lease agreement. The proposed terms of the lease are spelled out in your staff memo and include provisions related to the term, the lease rate, which is based upon an appraisal obtained by the city and then discounted to take into account public use of the facility, and improvements to the building, including renovations to the exterior, common areas, and the tenant suite. The responsibility of these costs is outlined, but in summary, the city would pay for improvements to the space, the chamber would pay for improvements to the space solely used by the chamber, referred in the agreement to the tenant space. The city would pay for exterior and restroom improvements. And then the city and the chamber would share in the costs of other common area improvements at a rate of 65% to the city and 35% to the chamber. Since submittal of the proposed lease that you have in front of you, we did receive some feedback from the staff members at the Chamber of Commerce. As such, we anticipate there will be some changes at your second reading, which we hope will occur on June 24th. We will be discussing these changes with the Chamber in the meantime. Should we not be able to come to an agreement by then, we will ask to postpone this till after council's recess.
Thank you, Angel. Any questions from council? Jane, or Kathy? Jane, did you have something?
No, I haven't.
Kathy.
I had a couple, thank you. I was looking at the list of improvements. I don't know if this is because we have deferred some maintenance on this. I was curious about the improvements that the city had done to the property in that first lease, but I didn't see numbers. And if we don't have them tonight, that's fine. I'm just curious about that.
We can get them for you. I can tell you that there have been some improvements that have been identified that because it is a public building and city-owned, there are some things that we need to do to bring it into ADA compliance, specifically bathroom improvements. And I think just overall improvements to the building, recognizing that it is used by the public. We want it to be a well-represented facility of the city. So that's really what's behind a lot of those, but a couple of these are ADA related.
Okay, so there are some, and then my second question, when I was looking at the lease, it was interesting to me that there's a 2% annual increase to the lease. That's not something I've seen before. I thought the thinking behind that
Well, I think that there's just generally an expectation that rent increases over time, especially as property values go up. But I will indicate that that is one of the points of discussion that we are still negotiating with the chamber on. So I guess I would respectfully ask to just leave it at that until we come back with what ultimately is agreed upon between the two parties, at least tentatively pending council's approval.
You know, and that was
Thank you.
based really on a second appraisal by another entity, and I noticed they were different from the first appraisal, so it went up $1.50, I think, a square foot.
Yeah, the most recent appraisal was done in 2017, and so that information was based on that. And we did use the low end of the scale for this property, applying it to the base rent.
Yeah.
Angel, can you just, in our packets, can you supply us with the previous rental agreement, the previous lease?
Sure.
Thank you.
And one other comment, I noticed in the exterior improvements that were included in this, I live in the district and I know that it would be really nice to be able to discuss the possibility of doing a little bit newer landscape design out front. It's pretty aged, and I'm sure that the chamber could benefit from a little redesign or a little, sprucing up there. Since you're going to be already working on pavers and the sort of thing out front, that maybe some planting materials should be considered.
Certainly, we will take a look at that.
Any other comments or questions from council? Kathy? No, thank you. Okay, we'll see you back on June 24th. Thanks, Ann.
Greg.
Ordinance 35-19.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a development and real estate purchase agreement to convey the property located at 7001 Dublin Park Drive to Chiller LLC, and authorizing execution of various related documents.
I'll introduce it. Donna.
Good evening, members of council. For your review this evening is the development and real estate purchase agreement between the city and Dublin Chiller LLC for property located at 7001 Dublin Park Drive. To highlight the details provided in your memo, the partnership between the city and the Chiller began in 1993 when the city purchased roughly 7.5 acres of land for a cost of approximately $372,000. The Chiller then built 2 buildings on the property to support ice hockey, figure skating, and related programming to the broader Dublin community. Since that time, the Chiller has operated and maintained the facilities at no cost to the city. However, as you may imagine, the physical structures and the mechanical equipment have endured a great deal of use over the past 26 years and are now in need of repair and replacement to better meet the growing demands of the program. As the current public-private structure of the agreement between the city and the Chiller limits financing options, the Chiller is requesting that the city-owned property be transferred to them with the understanding that at no further cost to the city, the facility will continue to operate as a hockey, skating, and ice arena under the terms of the operating agreement, which is provided in your packet. The current estimated value of the city-owned land is approximately $745,000, and should council agree to the transfer, there are a few key dates I'd like to clarify for your consistency between the memo and the documents in your packet. First, the Chiller must complete all the repairs as outlined in the Osborne Engineering Report prior to January 1, 2025. These repairs, along with the renovations and equipment upgrades currently proposed by the Chiller, are estimated to total approximately $6 million. Should the Chiller fail to complete the renovations by that date, the property will be subject to reconveyance. Second, if prior to January 1, 2030, the Chiller changes the use of the facility or ceases to operate the facility for longer than 30 days without the prior written consent of the city, the property will be subject to reconveyance. And lastly, the city will retain a right of first offer should the Chiller choose to sell the property prior to January 1, 2035. My apologies to council that in the real estate purchase agreement that was uploaded to your packet, it seems like we had some gremlins that were at work this week. That was a working version in the packet, and it does not accurately reflect the dates that I just shared with you and are outlined in your memo. So those are the accurate, that's the accurate information. And we'll be certain this is corrected prior to the second reading. We plan to bring this item back for council's consideration at the June 24th meeting and have invited representatives from the chiller to attend and address any operational or programming questions you may have. I'd also like to add at this time, however, that in our discussions to date, the chiller has indicated that the demand for ice in Dublin is such that they are proposing to add a third sheet of ice, which again would be at no cost to the city. In the meantime, I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have on the real estate purchase agreement.
I'm just curious, over the past years, we've owned this thing, and the infrastructure really has been worn down based on this engineering report. And so did we not have any involvement in inspecting the building? I mean, we own the property, technically, the land. We did not own the building, right? They built the building.
Correct.
But, over these years, everything sort of wore down. I also worry a little bit, and this goes back into the golf course that we happen to own, how well are we keeping that up? How often do we inspect it? Because it is ours and it reverts back to us. So did we not inspect this at all, or were we not involved in the inspection of this facility, the city?
The current operating agreement did not require us to inspect any of the operations or any of the facilities on the interior. Obviously, we have our code enforcement issues that would look at the exterior of the building, but the interior we did not.
Just one point of clarification on that. We have actually, through facilities, looked at that facility each year, and I think some of this is just general wear and tear of the facility, and the HVAC and other mechanicals are at that point in time where many of them need replaced. So I think both the city and the chiller both realize that it's time for some significant upgrades in the existing facility.
Michelle, do we know the dollar value of upgrades that they have made over in the past?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
They've
thank you.
invested $5 million into those facilities over the period of time.
I got a comment or a question about this, too. Okay, so, in the contract, it says, they're going to use it for, the public, generally for the public good. But, when we owned the land, we had control over all this over the long haul, because they were the tenant and we were the landholders. And then now we're going to give up this right, and we will not have that kind of authority over this, and how it's used, I suppose, will be diminished, because, I read it and it has a general terminology in the contract, but it doesn't really state percentages or times or anything else about our community and their use of this, or our schools and their use of this. So I'm just curious about that.
Sure. In the operating agreement, you can see the details there, and if you give me a second, I'll lay it out as well. So in the operations agreement, you'll see that in the statement of agreement, it does talk about the right to operate and how the facility will be operated over time. There are agreement in place that it says that it will be made to the benefit of the greater Dublin community and provide recreational resources to the Dublin City Schools, the ice hockey program, figure skating program, and other ice-related recreational activities.
And that's really what I'm commenting on, because those are all like vague terms, but it doesn't specify, the schools will be able to use this, community will be able to use this. It says,
Sure.
This is our intent, or what we're trying to do with them, so I'm just sort of curious.
Yes, and the representatives from the chiller that will be here for the second reading can go over some of the program details with you to talk about the different hockey teams and figure skating clubs, the other recreational hockey teams for the adult league that they currently support.
And thinking back on the old agreements and discussions, we also had more or less control over the costs, because we own the land, and now, of course, we don't any longer, because they're going to own the land and the structure. So, being business what it is, I'm just somewhat concerned that the price of ice time, as I guess it's priced that way, by the hour or whatever, might go up, and we don't have really control over that anymore. So that concerns me also.
Mm-hmm. I can certainly ask the folks from the chiller to address what their projected costs are.
Yeah, I'm really,
Sure,
yeah, because
sure.
we used to have control over this situation, and now we're relinquishing that right, and so I just have questions about all this.
Other questions? Kathy, got any? Kathy?
Yeah, I echo some of John's concerns here, and I had a couple questions about, it was unclear to me in the terms that they could sell the building prior to making any sort of repairs on that building, as I read this.
No, that's not what it is intended to say. It's intended to say that the repairs must be made before 2025, and if they're not made before that time, the property will be reconveyed to the city.
But they couldn't be sold until at which time all of those repairs are made, because it is not clear about that.
That's correct. We can look at that language and be sure that that's outlined correctly.
You know, it has been a very successful long-term lease, and they have made repairs over time. You said about $5 million. I'm still a bit unclear myself why a continued long-term lease isn't a viable option here in that relationship, and for many of the reasons that, you know, John put forth.
No, I also echo that same sentiment, really. Why we can't do another long-term lease and still maintain our property. And, you know, just looking at the value of the property, it's valued a little over $100,000 an acre. And I don't know if that's really the current value of property up in a commercial area any longer.
I think that's pretty accurate. We had that appraisal done in 2017.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All righty.
Jane?
I have a couple questions. Can you tell me what the current zoning on the land is at present?
I can't off the top of my head.
Okay. Part of the reason I'm asking that is, you know, obviously, in order to consider doing this, you would want to assure that it was maintained as an ice hockey rink. And I didn't see anything in the contract that it said that if they were to sell it, that it was only, that this only applied to the purchaser. So scenario being, they make the improvements, decide to sell it, and then the next person does not necessarily have to maintain it as an ice hockey rink. So I guess I'd like to understand a little bit better how the city is protected to assure that it is maintained as an ice rink for even longer than 10 years. Does it require a deed restriction that that's the only use that it can be, or a zoning if you give the land, I think that you could apply a deed restriction. I think it would be important that we would not give away land and they make an improvement, the building is sold and then turned into something else. And then they had the opportunity of $1 million higher evaluation. The other question I would have is, the Chiller LLC is the purchaser, excuse me, and that's assuming one identity. They have 4 other facilities. If for some reason one of the 4 other facilities were to fail financially, could the bank foreclose on one of the other facilities? Could they then come and foreclose on our facility in order to pay a debt from another facility, since the purchaser is one entity? That puts the city at a little higher risk as well. In other words, well, I guess not in other words, that would be my concern, is that if one of the other facilities didn't do as well, or a loan, I don't know what the financials are on the others, but if they were to get into financial distress, could they foreclose on another property in order to pay a bank loan off? I think last question is, wait a minute, let's see if I had one more. Oh, I think that's the other question I would ask, is does the contract only apply to the purchaser? In other words, if they were to sell it, I'm getting the impression that they could sell it before the 10 years. And that's the part that I'm a little vague on. And that they would sell it back to the city and there's no set price. In other words, we would have the right of first offer, but at what price? That's it, pretty much. Thank you.
Okay, any other items we want addressed by the second reading? You got that list, Anna?
I do.
I guess, can these issues be worked out before the second reading, or should we table this, or?
No, I believe we can work out these issues prior to the second reading. They're mostly questions that just need some refinement. I think we can go back to the chiller and review these and.
Yeah, and with Kathy, I'm very interested about still maintaining ownership of the property and extend their lease out for a bajillion years like we did with them the last time, but at least we still had some control over possibly any kind of infringement on our costs of our time or the public's use of this, because now we're turning this over to a corporation, and business being what business is, I'm not really sure of the results, and it's an important part of our community. It's something our students and people really enjoy. Thank you.
Okay, so we will see you back on that on June 24th. Resolution 31-19.
Accepting the lowest and best bid for the 2019 guardrail replacement and maintenance program.
I'll introduce it. Paul.
Members of council, on May 22nd of this year, 2 bids were received for the 2019 guardrail replacement and maintenance project. This project involves the replacement of existing steel guardrail with painted galvanized steel guardrail on Riverside Drive, and then replacement of existing steel guardrail with steel back timber guardrail on Muirfield Drive. That would be south of Bridges Close and then on Post Road, just west of Commerce Parkway. The engineer's estimate for this work was $135,000. The budgeted funds in the capital improvements program for the work was $170,000. The bids received are higher than the engineer's estimate and are likely due to the potential of rock excavation when installing the guardrail posts and then also encountering storm sewer on Riverside Drive. The Paul Peterson Company submitted the lowest and best bid of $474.20, which was 10% over the engineer's estimate. As council knows and is typical, there are a number of CIP projects that are in transportation to be performed in 2019. Given the relatively small difference between the engineer's estimate and the bid, which is just under $8,000, other budgeted funds would expect it to be to cover this difference. Staff anticipates construction to commence in August of this year. Streets impacted by the construction will remain open to traffic during the construction. The completion date for the project is October 25th of this year. Staff has thoroughly reviewed the bids submitted by Paul Peterson Company. Our experience with Paul Peterson is very good and has always been favorable. Staff does recommend council approval of resolution number 31-19, accepting as lowest and best the bid of Paul Peterson Company in the amount of $448,474.20. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? Kathy? No?
Paul, I just have one, and
Yes.
I'm sure you're tired of hearing it, but could we get perhaps a memo or just where we are in terms of the projects that we've bid, where we're at, the ones we anticipate bidding, and how that might impact it? What I don't want to have happen is us get towards the end of the year and have a really important project, and since granted, some have gone over, some have gone under, but I don't want to get to the end and say we can't do this project. Maybe we'll have to prioritize, perhaps we won't. But in the event that we would need to prioritize, I'd rather like to have more flexibility in our prioritization than get down to the 7th inning and then it can be either or versus one of 6 or 7.
Right. We are planning to include in your next packet an updated CIP status report that will include prior year carryover encumbrances as well.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions from council?
Ms. Ludo?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Mayor Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Mr. Rosa?
Yes.
Resolution 32-19.
Accepting the lowest and best bid for the 2019 pedestrian tunnel maintenance program.
I will introduce it. Paul, you're still standing there?
Number 2 of 3 bid acceptances this evening. So once again, on May 22nd, we opened bids, actually a half hour earlier than the previous bids, for the 2019 pedestrian tunnel maintenance project. This project is on Carnoustie Drive, west of Springborn Court and east of Turnen Hill Court. It involves the removal of the existing stone-clad slopes at each end of the existing tunnel, which is a 108-inch diameter tunnel. And then once that stone is removed, the tunnel will be extended. A new cast-in-place retaining wall with stone veneer facing will be constructed at each tunnel entrance. So very similar to what we've done in the past with other tunnels of a similar type. The engineer's estimate for the work was $500,000. Within the CIP, the budgeted funds were $440,000 this year. The cost of the project exceeds the budget due to the proposed retaining walls being longer than anticipated when this work was initially programmed. The longer walls are necessary to avoid existing storm sewers on both ends of the tunnel itself. And as a result, these proposed retaining walls have really 25% more concrete than kind of some of the recent tunnels we have done. The Ryder Company submitted the lowest and best bid of $536,647.50, which was 7.3% over the engineer's estimate. Once again, we anticipate this overage to be covered by budgeted funds for other CIP projects this year. Staff anticipates construction to start in either late July or early August. The path will be maintained through the tunnel during construction. The path will be closed with barricades at each end of the tunnel during construction. However, Carnoustie Drive will remain open. There will be periods where the roadway will be closed when some of the drilling and shoring is done, when the pipe ends are set. Those we expect to be minimal, but will be a couple days. And we'll post detours during that work. The completion date for the tunnel project, or this tunnel project, is November 15th of this year. Once again, we have thoroughly reviewed the bid submitted by the Ryder Company. We have very good experience with this company. They've done several recent projects, including the Ashbaugh Road Bridge project. So staff recommends council approval of resolution number 32-19, accepting as lowest and best the bid of the Ryder Company in the amount of $536,647.50.
Questions from council?
Is this the same company that did the Memorial Drive
It
tunnel?
is not.
Good, thank you.
And actually, they did not bid
Good.
this
And
project.
then I saw there was an increase in the concrete going to be used on the head walls.
Correct, on the retaining walls.
Is that due to, it looks like we've had some washout on the Memorial.
Not really.
Is it going to extend further? I'll say east and west. It isn't.
Yeah, there'll be
really-
longer walls than what was on the Memorial Tunnel. And again, that's the work with existing storm sewers, so they really were longer than we anticipated during programming on this particular tunnel.
We may want to take a peek on the one to the northeast corner of that.
Of the Memorial?
Of the
or-
Memorial project.
Okay.
So we might have a little bit something to do there.
Yeah, we typically, when we're done with construction, until turf gets established, it's really tough on those slopes to keep earth in place until we get that vegetation there. But yeah, we'll certainly take a look.
Any other questions from council? Jane?
Just one. I noticed in both times you anticipate you'll be able to cover the shortage using other budgeted funds. Those other budgeted funds, do you feel are going to impact some other program that, I know Chris brought this up. Do you anticipate any real impact to other planned programming?
Not necessarily. We've got a couple of projects that we're just not going to move forward with this year. For instance, a wayfinding project is a good example that we're going to reconfigure, and you'll hear about that during the proposed CIP. Just try and do it all as one phase at a later date instead of these smaller phases. So no, we think we can cover this difference.
So mainly they'd be coming from that project, you think?
Yeah, and some others. So.
All right. Thank you.
Anything else from council? Ann?
Mr. Bosa?
Yes.
Mr. Weiner?
Yes.
Mayor Peterson?
Yes.
Saludo? Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Resolution 33-19.
Accepting the lowest and best bid for the Dumfries Court East Hydraulic Disconnect Project.
I will introduce it. Paul?
All right, last but not least, and then you won't see me again until probably July 29th.
Okay.
Oh.
Disappointing, I know. On May 29th of 2019, we just received one bid for the Dumfries Court East Hydraulic Disconnect Project. This project involves the improvements that will isolate the 8 Dumfries Court East residents from the Deer Run sanitary sewer shed gravity sewer, thereby reducing the potential for water and basement events caused by sanitary sewer discharges within Deer Run sanitary sewer. I know that's a long sentence, but I know you're all familiar with those events that have happened in the past as a result of the sewer surcharge over there. Sanitary sewer lines serving the 8 homes on Dunphy Court East will discharge into a newly constructed sanitary sewer lift station, and from there will be pumped through a short 1.5-inch force main into the Deer Run sanitary sewer along Blick Road. Project limits extend from Carnoustie Drive and Dumfries Court East intersection, east and west, and then head north to Blick Road at the Carnoustie Drive intersection, and then on to the Muirfield Association North Pool area. The project involves placing sanitary sewer infrastructure outside of existing road right-of-way and existing dedicated utility easements. So as a result, we did need some additional permanent easement, temporary easements from the Muirfield Association. And you may remember on April 8th of this year, you did adopt an ordinance thereby accepting the donation of those easements, which again we appreciate and really help facilitate the project. This project was first advertised for bids in April of this year. On April 19th, we received one bid from Complete General Construction. The bid did exceed our engineer's estimate at that time, which was $325,000 by 43%, was not awarded. But in an effort to better understand why, we only had one bid, and to understand if there was any contractor confusion, we did contact some contractors. We understood some issues in the plans. We went back from their feedback and adjusted the bid documents, and then advertised the project for bids a second time in May of this year. And then we also contacted several contractors just to make them aware that we had the project back out to bid and to try and gain some interest in the project. Additionally, we increased the engineer's estimate to $360,000. And then, as I said, on May 29th, we opened bids, and Complete General Construction Company submitted the lowest and best bid, the only bid at $468,497.50, which is 30% over the engineer's estimate. When we went back and reviewed the bid compared to the engineer's estimate, the vast majority of the difference was in the 10-inch gravity sewer that runs from the Dumfries Court east and west Carnoustie Drive intersection and heads north. That really accounted for almost a little over $83,000 in the additional cost. Representative from Complete General Construction Company indicated that their reasoning for the pipe cost was just mobilization and trucking and their estimation of the difficulty of that pipe installation. There is also, we're going to do much of that work at night to reduce impact to local residents, to maintain traffic, and then also not to impact the pool operations themselves. Staff anticipates construction of the project to commence in late June or early July of this year. Again, vast majority of the gravity sewer will be constructed during nighttime hours. The completion date for the project is September 27th of this year. We have reviewed the bid from Complete General Construction. We are recommending that we accept as lowest and best their bid, thereby recommend your approval of resolution number 33-19 and the bid in the amount of $468,497.50. And lastly, our experience, as always, with Complete General Construction Company has been favorable. They do very good work for us and deliver a project timely and very expeditiously. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Questions from council? Hearing none. Ann?
Ms. Ludo?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Mayor Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
And Mr. Rosa?
Yes.
Thank you.
There you go. 3 for 3, Paul. Go get busy. Under the other portion of our agenda, acceptance of the Tax Incentive Review Council report. Matt.
The Tax Incentive Review Council meeting was held Tuesday, May 7th, and at that meeting, the CRA and TIF reports and minutes for 2018 were reviewed by the council and accepted. The county auditor prefers that City Council formally accept the minutes and reports of that TIRC so that there's a public record which reflects council received that information. So tonight, I would request that you accept the TIRC minutes and report by motion. And I'm available for any questions.
Any questions from council? Hearing none, I make a motion that we accept the report from the TIRC meeting.
I'll second.
Ann?
Vice Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Ms. Saludo?
Yes.
Mr. Bosa?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Mayor Peterson?
Yes. And the transportation-related tax revenues issue. Matt?
Yes, thank you. This memo follows up on information previously discussed at council regarding revenue sources dedicated to transportation and some amendments that were part of the transportation bill that increased the amount of permissive tax revenue that may be levied by a taxing district. With regard to the motor vehicle fuel tax and the motor vehicle license tax, this information is provided for information only, as there are no additional actions available to council regarding these tax revenues. However, with regard to the permissive taxes, under current law and under the changes to existing law made in the transportation budget, there are actions available to council to increase permissive taxes in each of Dublin's 3 taxing districts. Current permissive taxes in Franklin County total $20, Delaware total $10, and Union County total $0 of the new $30 maximum in permissive taxes. So tonight we are seeking guidance from council as to whether there is any interest in exploring or enacting additional permissive tax revenues in Dublin's taxing districts. Also included in this memo was an article that identified Columbus as increasing their permissive taxes by $5. And further, also included in the memo was a comparison of each taxing district of the municipalities that are located in their county and what their permissive taxes are for comparison purposes. So with that, I'm available for any questions and seeking your guidance.
Matt, thank you for putting together this information. It is really helpful. I really asked for this really as a result of the conversations we've been having at MORPC about roadway improvements collectively, and to help us understand what it is that we are doing, and in my mind, most importantly, what our neighbors aren't. And so when we have many difficult decisions ahead of us about partnering with adjacent municipalities, and I think that it's important that we illustrate and highlight the taxes that we've imposed on our residents, and it's significant. And in order to garner those partnerships, our neighbors are, if we're going to partner with them in any way that might be out of balance, they need to, at a minimum, be doing the same that we are. So thank you for putting this together. I think it's very helpful, and it's illustrative of, people say, well, you have a lot of money to repair your roads. Well, the reason that we have a lot of money to repair our roads is because our people pay the tax to do so. I think that this fuel tax is a use tax, which is really the only, I feel, is one of the most appropriate forms of taxation, or the people that use the roads should pay for the roads. And this fuel tax ensures that just that happens. And if you don't impose those fees on the folks that are using your roads, you're never going to have any money to repair them, because you're not taxing the people that use them. So thank you for this. I think that this is something that warrants a lot of discussion.
Kathy?
I just had a question to make sure I'm understanding. So you live in the city of Dublin, you live in Franklin County. There is an assessment by Franklin, and it says, I'm looking at the chart on, I guess, the second page here. It says government levying the tax. It lists both Franklin and Dublin, So historically and under the new law, both the county and the city would have to approve this, or just help me understand a little bit. Thank you.
Sure, yeah, this is a really difficult table to try to construct, so let me walk you. The green and white are not an accident. Each one of those colors alternates a row and a decision between 2 separate ORCs. So when you look at the top of the table for Franklin County Taxing District, you'll see that this $5 fee under that ORC, the .24, we'll just use the last number for simplicity, ORC is distributed 100% to the county, and the county, the government that approves this tax is actually Franklin County. They approve it. And then the potential action, they're already instituting this tax, so there's no action for them to take, they've already taken it. And each of those colors represents a decision. So when you move down to the second $5 fee, this is an either or. Either the city or the county take action, but not both. In this case, under .02, if the county takes action, they receive 100% to the county, but the municipality can request a portion of this money. This is the portion that's been enacted in Franklin County, so the government that can take that action is Franklin County. Had Franklin County not taken this action, the city, with the distribution 100% of the municipality, would be able to take action. So it's either or, and in this case, you can see potential action available. There is none. It's been levied. That isn't.
And were they levied by Franklin County, or were they levied by Dublin?
They were levied by Franklin County.
Okay, so
But we receive money back.
Yes, we do.
some portion, what portion?
It is, we've received, under 02, we've received $590,000 in 2016, and we have a current balance on hand of just under $500,000. Looking at the numbers, I haven't seen it exactly broken. I'm guessing it's about 50%.
Matt, can you let us know how much of the $5 we get?
Yeah.
Sure.
So as I understand your conversation, now under the new transportation bill, Dublin and Dublin alone, because they would be the only taxing authority on that particular line, couldn't choose to assess.
Correct.
Right.
The new ordinance is the last line in each of the tables, the .173, that is exclusive to municipalities and townships. In order to keep the table as manageable as possible, I eliminated all township decisions because that's not relevant here. But it's an either or in that case as well. But in our case, it's available to the city of Dublin in the transportation bill.
So if we were to take Delaware County, look at that particular chart here, so basically what that's saying is some of them have been levied by Delaware and some of them haven't, either by Delaware or Dublin. So it is interesting in some areas, we could have taken action on some of these and didn't take action on them, or Delaware could have. So depending on where you're living in the city of Dublin, you're either paying $20 or you're paying nothing or you're paying $10, right?
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. But as far to date, has Dublin been the party that enacted the tax in any instance?
No, there are only 6 permissive taxes, 4 in Franklin County, 2 in Delaware, and in each of those instances, the county was the enacting jurisdiction. But we do receive money from 2 of the 4 in Franklin County and 1 of the 2 in Delaware.
Yes, and so sort of back to the conversation that we started to have here a little bit, in say, either Delaware County or Union County, Dublin could make that decision, and could make that decision solely in that county or versus another county, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so it is interesting, Chris, when we think about the funds that are available or could be available. It was just interesting to go through this and understand that we really haven't levied any of those taxes, but we are benefiting from it. We could have the power to do that in counties where it's not being enacted. What
We've
percentage
chosen
of,
not
and we've chosen not to.
Correct.
What percentage of that would or could come to the city? Again, just some questions here to help us understand some of this. So in terms of sort of feedback, just understanding the complexity and the realities of some of this, I find is helpful, but it seems like maybe we could provide a little bit more background.
Well, and I think to Chris's point, I don't think Delaware nor Union have imposed.
Delaware has imposed 2. If we look at
Yeah,
page
looks
4
like
of
it.
6, you'll see in 2 of the potential actions available, it says none. Delaware County is already levying this fee. So in those, in the third lane, the second green row essentially, Delaware has taken action there. So action by the city is precluded in that row. Same thing with the 4th row, which is available in white. You'll notice that in the second row, which is the city or Delaware County may take action, either entity can take action in that second row. The bottom 2 rows are always city takes action, $5 fees, and the first row, the $5 is only available to the county.
So it is only Union County that has not imposed any
Correct.
permissive tax.
But I think what's important here is that I think we should seek to make the playing field level for all Dublin residents, right? Regardless of what county you live in. If Franklin County is going to have these, the folks, vast majority, let's face it, of our population is in Franklin County, and they're already paying the lion's share of those fees. And we have an opportunity in Delaware and Union County to at least treat all our residents the same.
And to this point, we haven't enacted any of the taxes. It has been so from the council's perspective, we have, but it's lumpy because of the county's action, not necessarily the city's.
Well, I guess I wouldn't totally agree with that. There, in these either or situations where they have not chosen to, nor have we chosen to. So we have had opportunity, particularly in Delaware County for the O2 line in the white where it's either or. If the county didn't, then we could, and we did it. The same.
Has it been discussed here before?
Not in my tenure.
No.
This was brought to my attention when we started having these fuel tax discussions of, what was going to be available to us to repair our infrastructure.
These are all I agree with you, Chris, they're legitimate issues to talk about. I don't know that we're going to solve it tonight.
No.
I'm
just trying to
Should we
understand it.
refer this to the Finance Committee to talk about it?
That's what we're seeking is guidance. If you're interested in this and you want further discussion, I know we all have very busy calendars, but we'll find an opportunity to have more discussion in a committee or workshop setting if there's interest in pursuing this. That's what we're seeking tonight is that type of feedback.
We might suggest a work session. Seems to be some interest among a
Is
majority
there
of
one
council.
that's currently scheduled that we could add this on? Oh, there's got to be. We've got like a million of them.
We can look into that and see if
Can you
if any
guys
of the
stick
upcoming
this-
work
Do you need
sessions.
a motion to refer that to a work session? Or can you-
That would be great.
Okay, I make a motion that we refer this issue of transportation-related tax revenues to an appropriate work session that's already been scheduled and add it to the agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ann?
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Rosa?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Mayor Peterson?
Yes.
And in the meantime, Matt, if we could get what percentage of those $5 fees we actually receive, what our distribution is of those if the county collects them, that would be really helpful for that conversation. Thank you.
Will do.
Right, and one other thing, maybe when we bring this to work session, because these are complex, maybe the possibilities of the ones that we have opportunities to act on versus maybe a county, because if Delaware County can enact it as well, at the same time that we would think about enacting, there's a difference in the amount that would come back to the municipality. So if you could just strategize a little bit about layering the priorities of what we could consider as possibilities.
Okay.
Okay, you got what you need, Matt, Michelle? Is that? Thank you. Okay. Moving on to the Historic Dublin Facade Grant recommendations. John, I think this is your deal.
Yes, on May 22nd, the Community Development Committee met, and we had one applicant at 75 South High Street. And before you, there's a background list of approved applications we've had in the past. We had quite a bit of discussion about not approving general maintenance, using the taxpayers' money for that, which we always seem to have that discussion just to make sure that all that's kept in the clear. The applicant requested $15,000. This looks like a really a great improvement to this property. Patio, front porch work, wall repairs, wrought iron fence, and a sort of a mini little patio area that's going to, I think, become another one of our positive spots, along with some of the rest of the ones we have that involve dining or drinking. So there was a motion to approve the $15,000 request, and that is about it in synopsis.
My sheet here says with the condition that they receive full approval by ARB at the June 26th.
And that happened that night, I understand.
Oh, it did?
No, it was postponed.
It was
June
what?
26th.
It was postponed until June 26th.
It got moved to the 26th?
June 26th. So your motion would include that condition?
It does.
I'll second that motion. Ann?
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Hang on, did you want to talk about it?
No,
We were not going to vote on this until
Until it
after
had been
they heard.
approved.
Because
Yeah.
we don't want to approve something that hasn't completed the process.
I think that's what we agreed to, isn't it, John?
That's right.
If we approve this money, they haven't heard it yet. They're saying, well, council already
I thought we were
approved
going
the
to
money,
approve
and
it with the
why are we-
caveat that,
Right, the caveat, it was going to happen that night before we voted this evening.
Right.
And that didn't happen that night, so we should not vote this evening.
so we don't want to put that kind of pressure on them.
That's after the 26th. Right.
Okay, so we'll
that
see how
make
things
sense?
go on the 26th.
Let's just table this.
Table that, yes.
Okay.
Then do we need a motion to table? Is this a?
Postpone.
I'll move to postpone.
Postpone.
I'll second.
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Rosa?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Mayor Peterson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I make, Mayor, just one other comment? At that meeting, we had an opportunity to go back and look at sort of before and after pictures of the 2018. I don't know if that is all going to be made available, but it was a really good first year. And we had some really nice successes in that. So I will encourage that we make that available, because I think the intent of that program as we went into the second year has really happened. So I think that would be good to share. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Staff comments, Michelle?
Just one item. I wanted to note that in your packet was a follow-up to one of the retreat items. Parks and Recreation has put together a series of recreational amenity maps, and draw your attention to those. And if you have anything else you'd like to see added to those, they incorporate, among all three of them, are parks and recreational amenities, as well as private recreational amenities. And then the question that came before council during the retreat was the northwest portion of the city, and we've also incorporated that, including Muirfield Association, their area as well. So those are for you to review, and if you'd like to see anything else added to those, please let us know.
Okay, is that it?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Committee reports, P&Z.
Mayor, excuse me.
Go ahead.
Pardon. Mayor Peterson, members of council, very briefly, when I reported on Ordinance 2819 with regard to the annexation, I misspoke and stated Concord Township. The property is in fact in Jerome Township, as reflected in your documents. So just didn't want there to be any confusion.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Anything else from staff? Angel, you going to chime in? Nothing? P&Z, Jane.
We have nothing to report. We didn't have meetings the last two scheduled, so.
Wow.
But there's a big one coming up.
Okay, admin,
Lots
Chris?
of agenda.
Yeah, we, for our mid-year check-in with our reviews, we postponed our time with our staff, and so we will be looking to reschedule that we're going to tag it on to another meeting. My hope is that we have a work session scheduled on June the 17th, and I'm hoping that we can perhaps tag it on either before or after that meeting. So if y'all could let us know if before or after is better for you. That meeting begins at 6. It's scheduled from 6 to 8:30. We could do a 5:15 start, or we could wait and do it at the conclusion of that work session. So if you could chime in with your preference, that would be most helpful.
Great. Anything else?
Yes, to me, or to Ann, because she likes those emails better than I do.
Community development, John?
Nothing, thank you.
Finance, Mike's not here. Kathy and Christina, anything in the finance world you want to report on?
No, I mean, we have definitely some good work sessions coming up, particularly bed tax, where we'll have a lot of discussions around the various sort of swim lane components of bed tax. So that should be a lively discussion.
Okay. Public Services Committee, Christina.
Yeah, so we did have a meeting that, thank you, Jane, for stepping in as I was late to that meeting. I really appreciate your help. We talked about the public arts report, so that is something that we'll be bringing forward to council for some consideration and discussion in the fall as part of the bed tax meeting. But the Arts Council did a nice job in putting that public arts strategy together. One thing that I did ask was if we had a GIS layer that had all of our public arts there, and I guess we do have some portion. Michelle, would you elaborate?
We do. We have all the art in public places sculptures that are outdoors throughout the community, and some of them that are indoors. But then when you get to other items that are within our buildings, paintings and that type of thing, those are not included in the GIS layer, but it's something that we could easily place in there.
Yeah, so I guess I just want a little bit of quick feedback from all of you about, do you think that that would be valuable to include those in a GIS layer?
Yeah, I think it would be. I think it's.
Super, thanks.
There you go. That's quick feedback.
Yep, and we actually have another meeting on Wednesday this week, so fun.
Thank you, Christina. CODA, Kathy?
Nothing, thank you.
Dublin Friendship Association, back to you, Christina.
Yeah, so as part of the library opening, it also happened to be the 100th anniversary of the 1919 building. So while neither of these things really have anything to do with council per se, we just sort of stepped in, and thanks to some of Nancy's help, and sort of acted as the relationship engineer to kick off a little bit of a coordinated effort between the library opening, that weekend of the library opening, and the celebration of the 1919 building. So if you drive by the 1919 building or you walk by it, you'll see this fabulous banner that celebrates 100 years of learning. And they had a little thing there as well. So that was something a little bit fun that that group got to work on. We also talked about the Mashka visit and the Tycho concert, August 24th. So I'll bring you back more information as we get a little closer to that. And we talked about the 2020 census just a little bit. And of course, council will be involved with that as well. And then, of course, we talked about the Memorial Day, or the Memorial Tournament. And that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you. Morpsey, Chris?
Welcome Washington Township's newest members of MORPC, so thank you.
Look, they can barely contain themselves.
Yeah.
They are so excited.
Curb your enthusiasm.
We're bouncing.
Easy, guys, easy, guys. This is on television. No, that's all I have. We have a meeting Thursday.
The LUC now is how we're referring to.
That is good.
Yeah, how about
Yeah.
that? Regional
I ha-
Planning Commission.
I have nothing to report, and I can say our 33 meets this Friday.
This Friday. Okay. How about the Northwest 33 Corridor Group?
That's the one Friday.
Okay. How about Dublin Arts Council, John?
Let's see, the lineup is continuing on the Sunday at the Sciotos, so great lineup of really, really good bands, well selected. So see you all there. It's Sunday at 6 o'clock for a wonderful evening.
Thanks, John. Dublin Board of Education, Christina?
We meet Wednesday. I have a busy day Wednesday.
Yes, you do. Washington Township, my friends back there, you guys got anything for the good of the order? Proud and happy? Okay. Dublin Bridges, Jane? Nothing. So let's stay with you for roundtable.
I just wanted to bring you up to date on a couple of things that I wanted to bring to your attention. Been working a little bit with staff and Nancy Richardson to look at some opportunities to increase awareness of City Council and connecting with the citizens. So we've been talking a little bit. I'm going to bring this back to you. Just food for thought. It's just a little brainstorming. But we're looking at ways that maybe we could improve our city's website with a little bit more messaging from City Council, a little bit of more awareness of what we're doing in the community and some of the actions that we're taking. Maybe utilizing a little bit more social media, maybe looking at some articles that might be written by council members. Definitely something that we're looking at as a voice of council and not necessarily of individual council members. But I just wanted to tell you that we're having that conversation. I'd like to bring back a little bit of suggestions for council to weigh in on and see if you have some thoughts on how we can improve the connection between our community and our council members.
Perfect. Thanks, Jane. Is that it? Kathy?
Thank you, Jane. I think that's a great idea. So you're going to prepare a memo? Is that your thinking at this point?
At the next one.
Great. And I just wanted to congratulate the library staff, the city staff, the schools for the tremendous library opening last Thursday. I didn't hear, I don't know, I'm looking at Michelle, if you heard an official number, but it was well over 1,000 folks there. I'm sure
Tim
of it.
Fromeyer told me 3,600 people.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. I mean, it was
amazing turnout. I've never seen anything like it.
I mean, people were standing in the parking garage. It was such a wonderful day, and I congratulate prior councils and everyone for work on that. Was fantastic. I happened to be over there today for a reason, picking up some materials, and you could barely walk in today still on a Monday afternoon. It was still all the buzz and all the rage. So congratulations. It really is going to be really a centerpiece of the community, and I know how much work there is. But what a wonderful last week, and I'm sure it's just going to continue to grow. So congratulations, and thanks for city's work on that.
Thanks, Kathy. John?
We had a meeting about the pedestrian bridge ceremony, which might be a little premature yet because we're waiting to find out what the businesses want to do because they want to participate. It sounded pretty exciting. We went through outcome goals and opportunities and challenges, events, stakeholders, and a whole series of items, but it's still, we think, still a little early. So when we get something more concrete, we'd like to bring it back to you. One thing that we did discuss that's, I think, very important, the east side of the bridge will be ready but the west side of the bridge will not be, probably, we'll be able to cross the bridge and then have a temporary path into the east side. But one thing we thought that would really be important would be, instead of construction, orange tape and barriers, is that we do graphics on fences, which would show the park right and left as you're going through that channel, crossing over onto the road. So I think it's a very important suggestion, and I think it'll make the appearance of that whole day in, we think, maybe December or possibly January, just be much more appealing. So we're sort of interested in the aesthetics on the other side. So we're working on that, and that's probably covers most of the topic.
Is that it?
Oh, and one other comment on the Blue Zone. I read the Blue Zone report, and it was pretty exciting. Some places had less than or more than 25 or 20% reduction in obesity in their citizenry. I thought when we were talking about that last time, we were looking for partners, but the city's involved in that too still, right, financially somehow? I mean, from what the report said, it looked like we were only going to have other partners, so I wasn't sure.
Our intent is to find partners for the full 50,000, and that's what council was in agreement with. And Molly Steiner has begun to reengage with companies that were at the keynote and that expressed some interest. So we'll have something back to council here, hopefully in the next month or so.
We'd love to hear, see how far you've gotten on that. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, John. Christina?
Thanks. So I had a chance to meet with Michelle and with Christine a little bit regarding where some things are with our Forever Dublin. And so I just wanted to give all of you a heads up. As we get into the summer, we'll be collecting more data. I don't know that we'll have a lot of great, meaningful data as we get into budget season, so that's just something I want you to keep in your minds. Christine is like this endless machine of ideas, and yeah, is she there? Oh, yeah, she's still there. She's hiding behind Justin.
The guy with the gun.
Yeah, exactly, right? And so, I mean, I don't know how many ideas she came up with just while we were sitting there talking it through, but there will be I think, some really exciting things coming. It is a big target with a lot of different areas to try to hit, and it's how much do you do, how much do you work with others to collaborate doing. So I suspect that in the coming year, we'll have a lot more collaboration with a lot more partners. But I did want you guys to know that we're certainly continuing to move forward with those things. And your support as a council, our support as a council has been just tremendous in this effort. And we are already making an impact. And that's just really important. And it just shows how much we all really care about this community. So I wanted to say thank you to all of you. And thank you to Michelle and Christine, amazing, for all the work that they're doing and their partnership that we have with Centero.
Just one comment on that. There will be an update in the next packet, and the hub is officially open now. We are beginning to advertise more routinely that's available.
Thanks, Christina. Chris?
Yeah, so Greg and I attended the school's plaque dedication, maybe, in recognition of 100 years. Congratulations to the schools. They've really done a fantastic job with that facility and had lots of mementos and things to look at inside, so congratulations to them. Last week, Jane and I met with our design team for our new council chambers. Jenny will be putting in board pack in short order the current design. We provided some direction with that, and she will upload to your board pack the direction that the design is going. We did give direction to the architect just to continue to pursue those, but wanted to just keep everybody in the loop as to where we're going, and so that you will have access to those things. So look for that in your board pack in the next couple of days. Wanted to congratulate the Muirfield Village on a tremendous memorial tournament. It really was really well done this year. The 4-miler went great. The leaderboard breakfast was informative and engaged our business community. The opening ceremonies has been been running on Golf Channel since then, and gives us certainly a lot of exposure. I think most notably, I don't know if you saw the end of the tournament, but Jim Nance signed off and he said goodbye from Dublin, Ohio, which was really, really a cool thing for our community to have that sort of you couldn't ask for much more. I mean, Tiger made a run on Sunday, and Jim Nantz said goodbye from Dublin, Ohio. I don't know how you can script it a whole lot better than that. So, also during that week, it was kind of crazy, and Kyle Kreidler was having his going away party. So I know that I missed that, but I wanted to certainly let him know that it certainly would have enjoyed being there, and wish him all the best. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Chris. Echo the congratulations to the library. It was really an amazing 3 days to walk from that building and all of that represents as far as the future is concerned, and then 3 days later, be standing in the 1919 building that's 100 years old. It was a really kind of cool dynamic there, seeing those things. And I guess the 1919 building is what replaced the Washington Township School that came down that was on the site where the library is. So that and the schools and you just think about everything that they're accomplishing in our community. It's really fantastic. I got an opportunity to stand with Dick Tremere in that it was like a little stage area when my kids went through school there, but he told me that was the gym, and they played basketball in that area. And just a really fantastic guy. He's sort of in that Chi Weber lane of travel of having the historical memory of all that stuff. All 4 of his brothers attended that school at the same time. So really cool stories from him. One question I have, and I've heard this from a number of different people, I don't know if it's still an issue or not, maybe it's a thing that people will learn, but it's the signage on the parking garage. And I went down, I looked at it, and it says library parking. And I get it, because that is library parking. I wonder if we would be able to slide those letters down and put public and library parking on that, whatever you call that overhang. I can see how people would hesitate to pull in there if they didn't know, and if you pull in, you have to get up to the 3rd floor before you get past all those reserve signs. So you may even pull in and see it says library, 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 and just pull straight out and leave. So I think maybe our community will learn it over time, but I'm wondering if there isn't a way to make a slight modification to that sign and add basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 digits, public and library parking.
We can definitely look at that.
Can we look
Back
into
with
that,
you.
Michelle,
Sure.
and just see, because some of the businesses were saying that they thought, like, their patrons come in and say, we thought that parking garage was going to be for the public, but it's just for the library. And now, with it being the library being open, I could see how it would discourage somebody from going up to the 3rd floor.
Or you could have library entrance and then have a designation to public parking entrance or something. I don't know what the right thing
so that people would
is.
know it includes both things. You must
So
have something to say about this.
Well, the agreement with the library provided for the library's approval of the signage. So we had extensive discussions with the library about the entire signage package, both exterior and interior. So we could have the discussions with them. We can revisit that with them. But it would require the library's approval of any changes to the existing signing.
And I have no problem with that, and if they say, no, that's just not something we're interested in, at least we had the conversation. But I think now, sometimes these buildings, when you live in them a little bit, you sort of realize, all right, we maybe should have done that a little bit different. And I can see the point, that if it just says library parking, it looks like a big old library parking structure. And people may think, even if you hear it's library during library hours and public other hours, they may think the whole thing is library during public hours, during open hours. You know what I mean? Maybe
Yes, we
could,
had a lot of those discussions as we were working through that.
maybe we could try it again now that we're sort of living in the building a little bit. And see, I
Yeah,
don't know
there's a
that,
few other things we need to discuss with them, so we can put together our list of questions and have a sit-down meeting with them to
Could we at
discuss how
least
the
give it a
entire
shot?
garage is operating at this point.
and see, because I don't know that would take away that much from the library's kind of claiming the space. I don't have a problem with them claiming their space. I get that, but I don't know that that should prevent us from claiming ours as well. So maybe you can just put that on the list.
Definitely will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just a thank you to our staff. I know that this tournament comes into our community and brings, 110,000 people in a couple of days. So Justin, Chief, what you guys do to move people in and out of this community safely, and you never hear stories of problems, and it is really unbelievable that a community our size is able to absorb that kind of exposure every year and do it apparently without even breaking a sweat. So thank you to all of our staff that took care of us during that week. And with that, we are adjourned.